Hello, everyone. Greetings from the country of Brazil, the city of São Paulo. This is Bishop Eneas Francisco, and today I'd like to share with you a message God has dropped in my spirit a few weeks ago. We received here like 3 weeks ago our friend and brother Dr. Eric Williams from Durham, North Carolina. And he blessed us so much with his interpretation of the text of John in the second chapter that I really believe you are aware of. You know what happens in the very first miracle Jesus performed. And when we think about the very first miracle that Jesus performed, we go back to a moment in the life of a couple that is not even mentioned, a family that is about to experience shame because in their culture, if the wine runs out, it's going to be a bad thing for you or for your family to offer a wedding and then there is no wine. The wine is not enough for the people you have invited. So the second chapter of John describes how the mother of Jesus, Mary, told him about that situation they're experiencing. And I would like to read a few verses from the Gospel according to John, second chapter. And I want to turn your attention to the verse 9, which reads, "When the ruler of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, and knew not whence it was, but the servants which drew the water knew, the governor of the feast called the bridegroom, and said unto him, Every man at the beginning doth set forth good wine, and when men have well drunk, then that which is worse, but thou hast kept the good wine until now." These beginning of miracles did Jesus in Cana of Galilee, and manifested forth his glory, and his disciples believed on him. So I want to discuss with you a topic that I believe will help you in spite of what you're going through at this moment. I want to talk about a time-redeeming God. A time-redeeming God. And from my notes, I want to emphasize here that the God we serve, he's not a victim of time, but he lords and over it. He is Lord over time, and there is nothing that happens in time that can disturb the mind of God, although it may disturb our minds all the time. From the beginning, God exists outside of time, Genesis 1:1. Time is his creation. So when Jesus steps into a situation, he's not working within human limitations. He can compress processes. So what takes years naturally can happen instantly, supernaturally. So when that family that was experiencing, or that family that invited the people for the wedding, they had no idea that they had a guest that would prevent them from experiencing public shame. And how does Jesus do that? How did Jesus do that? He compressed time and he overcame process and he brought them together, compressed them in order to make things that usually takes long in a very short period of time. So we understand that in Cana, Jesus establishes a principle. He kind of bypassed process, not ignoring it, because the result was the same if the time was longer. So what we're talking about, I am not a wine drinker, but from reading and from traveling and from meeting people that loves wine, we know that wine takes time. Good wine, expensive wine, takes time. You cannot have good wine in a matter of weeks or even months. You cannot even have good wine in a matter of hours. You can do your work with the grapes when they are ready, but you cannot make good wine. So we understand that good wine will require at least the process of planting. In other words, preparing the soil and planting the seeds and working it until it's time for harvest. So you plant, you wait, you harvest, you wait for the fermentation after working, stepping on the wine or on the grapes, and aging. Depending on the kind of wine you want to serve to people, you want to sell to people, it will take time. And the longer it takes, the best is the wine. So what I see in this scripture is that Jesus is skipping all this process. Jesus is skipping all these stages that are necessary for good wine. He's not breaking the system, but he's fulfilling the outcome without the timeline. We know how much time impacts everything that we do. The time will impact our finances, will increase or decrease it. Time will impact our relationships. As we spend time with people, we're going to have more intimacy with them and know more of these people. So time will impact everything that we do. But this miracle wasn't just about provision, even though Jesus provided wine when wine ran out. But it was a miracle of acceleration. Repeat that, acceleration. Because as soon as they obeyed, Jesus condensed and compressed the time required for good wine, and in a matter of minutes, he made that celebration and that wedding come back to life. So wine is one of the symbols of happiness. Happy people in a wedding drink wine. So what we see is that when he gave a command, his mother before told the servers, do everything that he tells you to do. When they obey without complaining, without questioning, in their obedience, the miracle was performed before their eyes. So obedience will always trigger time for redemption. Obedience will always trigger time redemption. So notice this very crucial thing. The servants had to obey a strange instruction. So sometimes we want to ask God to perform a miracle in our lives, but we want to give him the recipe. We want to tell him how he's going to do it. But Jesus begins his ministry with a strange instruction. And when he gives this strange instruction, the servants did not question. They did what he said as Mary told them. So sometimes God needs to use someone to encourage you to do funny things, strange things, awkward things that you may think will not make sense, but God is going to use these things to make your miracle come to pass. So he said, fill these jars with water. No argument, no delay. And the obedience was what activated that miracle. So the insight here is time redemption is often locked behind simple obedience. Do these and God will do that. Don't tell God how he's supposed to do. Don't give him your recipe. Don't tell him your instructions. Just obey his command. And in whatever he tells you to do, when you do it, you will see the miracle come to pass. So this redeeming the time that Paul's talk with the write to the Ephesians church later has to do with this. We must be wise, because the longer we spend trying to manage the situation, the longer we try to tell God how to organize or to perform things, longer will it take for us to experience what God has in store for us. So redeeming has the original idea in Greek of buying back lost opportunity. And in this miracle, Jesus does things that are so wonderful, because he's not just bringing wine back to the party, but he is restoring, besides doing the miracle of acceleration, as I said before, he is restoring honor instantly. So as I said before, in that culture, running out of wine was shameful. So Jesus didn't just solve the problem. He restored dignity, he prevented embarrassment, and did it immediately. So when Mary tells Jesus that they ran out of wine, she is concerned because they are concerned. I don't know if it is public in the wedding now, everybody is aware, or if just Mary heard saying that the wine was running out. We don't know. But when Mary shares with Jesus, he's kind of, don't bother me, But even though he was not so interested in making a miracle there, he did it. He gave one instruction. Because can you imagine, even though the celebration and the wedding was not ended yet, if that happens to end, people would go out bad talking that family. And now they are worried. So they are in their celebration, they are in their wedding, but they are struggling. Because in their mind, dishonor. In their mind, there is a big problem coming. There is shame coming. So Jesus works it out. So when the governor of that wedding tries that wine, he wonders what's happening here, because I see at least 3 types of wine in this celebration. Because we have a bad wine, we have a good wine, and we have a better wine. The good wine is the one they serve first, because as the governor says, men usually serve the good wine, and after people drank, they are happy, they are glad, we then serve a lower quality wine. So when the poor quality wine runs out, it means that the good one was served before. But then Jesus comes with a recovery after the lower quality wine. They served the good one, it ran out. They served the lower quality, and now even the lower quality wine is not available anymore. But then they bring the water that Jesus turned into wine. So Jesus redeemed time. What he's doing here, he is triggering time redemption through obedience. He is restoring honor instantly, and he offers the best faster than they expected. So God does not need a long time to do great things. Sometimes we think that it takes a lot of work to have great results, but God can do great stuff in a matter of minutes if you allow him to do his way. So the master of the feast said, "You have kept the good wine until now." That means not only time was shortened, but the quality of the wine was superior. So what principle do we have here? That when God accelerates, he doesn't downgrade the result. We as human beings, sometimes when we have to rush things out, we don't have good quality. If you go to a bakery and they're running out of a product and they begin to push their employees to do something because they need to provide for the clients and they rush it, the quality will not be good. If somebody is making a clothes for you, or if they are working something special for you, it takes time. Good stuff takes time. Good relationships takes time. But sometimes we think that because we are in need and we are rushing, we need to make things fast. But only God can do things fast in good quality. So when he accelerates, he doesn't downgrade the result. So what do we have here? We serve a time-redeeming God that doesn't matter how much time we lost in the past, how the struggle of your present time has crushed you. we know one thing, that if we keep our eyes in Jesus and our ears open to his instruction, and if we are really willing to do anything he said, we're going to understand and experience this. God can do in moments what life would take years to produce. If we're talking about wine will require, if you want a good quality wine, it will require good soil, and I would say especially in areas where good wine are produced. So when you look to the globe, you know there are specific areas in the North Hemisphere that will produce good wine. If you look to the South Hemisphere, there are a specific place producing good wine. And I'm talking in the South Hemisphere, Chile, Argentina, Rio Grande do Sul, the lowest state in the country of Brazil, South Africa, Australia, they will produce good grapes for great wines. If you go to the North Hemisphere, California, we'll talk about Greece, Israel, Italy, France, Spain, Portugal. All these countries provide good wine because the soil has everything that it takes to produce the best wines that will bring the result necessary for great wine. So it takes God's timing for your miracle. It takes God's soil for your miracle. It takes God's result for your miracle. So stop asking God to do what you have been thinking, because we all know that his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. Stop thinking about your big plans, because God has better plans in a better timeline if you allow him to work. He can do exceedingly, abundantly, above that anything we may think or ask, according to the power that worketh within us. So today I want to encourage you to be obedient to the Master, to Jesus Christ, who is working on your behalf, and he knows better than anyone else how to redeem time on your behalf. Go back to the scripture, John chapter 2. A good wine. I told you before, I'm not a wine drinker. But one thing we know, that probably 40, 50 years, 30 years, is it what takes for a good wine to be served. But Jesus said, let me work on this. Do this, and I will do that. Do this simple thing that doesn't make sense, and I will make it make sense. So in whatever area of your life that you're going through, that you're struggling with something, and you think that you ran out of time and it's impossible not to be shamed, it's impossible not to be dishonored, it's impossible not to feel embarrassed. If you invited Jesus to this celebration, he will do something big in a shorter time than you think. And the result will be better and bigger than anything you have imagined thus far. Thank you so much for tuning in with me on YouTube for Mount Calvary International. I need you to share this show, this service, this message, I don't know how you want to call it, with your friends. Ask them to subscribe and to share our channel, because we're doing something big for the Lord here in Brazil. So if you want to be part of what God is doing, being a blessing, sowing a seed in Mount Calvary here in São Paulo, Brazil, I'm going to drop here the PayPal of our church, and I will be so happy to know that you are being encouraged by what I preach, and that you are sowing what God is doing in Mount Calvary, São Paulo, Brazil. If you do that, drop me an email, and I will be sending you a copy of my book, An Open Door, a digital book. It will be a blessing on your life. Thank you so much for staying with us. God bless you.